Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Living the Liberated Life with Dr. KJ. I am your host, Dr. KJ, and I am so excited to have you join us this evening. This evening promises to be a wonderful, liberating experience for all of you watching, whether you are watching while we are on live or maybe you're going to be watching because we're on YouTube. We want you to experience the fullness of what this episode has to offer. Before we jump into our episode, I just want to share with each and every one of you that we have been having a wonderful time over here in the Love Lab at Living the Liberated Life with Dr. KJ. Last week, we had a wonderful episode. We encourage you to go back and watch as we think about the crisis of homelessness within our country, within our communities, and particularly within New York City. We want you all to go back and watch. We had Dr. Zalex Rivera, and she shared some valuable tools, valuable information for us as we think about how we can better be instruments of love and liberation and peace to our brothers and sisters that may be homeless, that may be hungry, that just may be in need, particularly during this holiday season. But let us keep in mind that homelessness is not just something that happens around the holidays. That is something that she emphasized in our last episode. And so we want to just make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out some of the previous episodes. We have some great episodes, lots of meat, lots of information, and a lot of inspiration. So we want you to join us. But tonight, if you have tuned in tonight, then you have tuned in because you want to be a part of this experience. Tonight, our experience is talking all about the gift. That's right, y'all. The gift of grief. And so tonight, I wanted to share the gift of grief with us being within the week that we celebrate, we uplift Thanksgiving. And we officially enter what is known as the holiday season. I thought it was really important that we brought forth this particular episode and we had our guests come on today because as I myself am one who am in the process of grieving, having lost my father last year in March, and then knowing so many of my friends, family members, sorors, community leaders, pastors, so many people that have been impacted because they have lost someone that they love and they are in the midst of this journey. They're trying to navigate life without someone they love. I thought it was really important that we were able to bring this to you today. I have some dear friends that I know are watching tonight or will be watching this episode. And I want to dedicate this episode to every one of you, every one of us that finds ourselves in this season of grief. And I want you to know that you are seen, you are heard, you are felt, and you are not alone. And so let's navigate this season together. Let's navigate this journey together. And who better to help us to do that than one that has crossed my path? We actually did not cross paths, but we heard about one another because we have similar journeys, we have similar experiences, and we ended up at the same church. I was at, as you see, I have on my Howard shirt, I was at Howard School of Divinity, and this young lady was actually also at Metropolitan Baptist Church in Washington, D.C., where I found membership under Watch Care, under Reverend Dr. H. Beecher Hicks Jr. And so I am so excited to have this sister. She is a superstar in the world of grief. I know that sounds weird, but she is a superstar. She is gifted in this arena. She has death doula classes, y'all. Have you ever heard of death doula? Listen, this sister is so dope, so gifted, so anointed, so connected, so grounded. She's just dope. And so we want to bring on tonight, we're not going to belabor the hour. We want to bring on tonight Dr. Jamie. Dr. Jamie, come on out and say hello to the Liberation.
Yes.
Yes, good
Yes.
evening.
So glad to be here. And I went to Howard too. Not the School of Divinity, but I'm still HU, in the building.
You know,
Yes.
Bison
Yes.
love, Bison love, Bison love. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, Dr. Jamie, tell those watching tonight who you are, where you come from, what you do, what's your specialty. Who is Dr. Jamie?
Who is Dr. Jamie? So since we're having a conversation about grief tonight, first of all, because you named some people who are grieving the loss of loved ones, whether they are parents or siblings, friends, and so I'm lighting my candles.
Yes.
Those who are not with us, but are with us, right? So lighting a candle for your father specifically, and my uncle specifically, and then for others, right, who don't walk this plane with us, but are still walking with us every day. So I am Alberta's granddaughter. I'm Pauline's cousin. I'm Salam's niece. I'm Lamont's cousin. And I named those four people specifically. One, my cousin Lamont transitioned just a few years ago, and we were about 6 months apart. He was one of my first friends, right? So you know how sometimes your cousins are your first best friends. So he was one of my first friends. So I named him. I named my uncle Salam William is how I grew up. Really called him Uncle Bugs. Y'all know how we got names in our family. But he transitioned earlier this year. And he was Muslim and loved me deeply enough that if I was preaching somewhere and he could get there, he was going to show up and tell me I gave the people a good word.
Amen.
I named my cousin Pauline, who transitioned in 1989, and my grandmother Alberta in 1995, because when you meet me, you meet them. And so I am their kin, right? So you're meeting someone who has been poured into by people who love God and love community. By all of the names that they've known to call God, right? They love God and they love community. I'm a minister. I'm an ordained minister. I don't usually put that as the first thing, right? Because let's talk about some other things first. Sometimes I am a death doula, or end of life doula. I am a grief companion. The technical term, I am a thanatologist, and that's simply the academic study of death, dying, grief, and bereavement. So I am a thanatologist. I'm a hashtag Black thanatologist because I think it's important that folks know that there are people who look like them that are doing this work, right? I am a chaplain. I am a poet. I am a woman who really, really has been praying to God that God would just deposit a voice like Dr. KJ in me, but it has not happened yet. Because let me tell you, I've been praying for years to be able to sing. And I am someone who has navigated deep losses and can look back over even my childhood and see where there were losses that forever shaped how I would show up in the world. And so that's who I am, right? I am a good girlfriend. I'm that person you can call, maybe text first because I might be in the meeting. I need to talk. And another role that I serve in is the director of counseling and wellness for an organization called the Anti-Violence Partnership of Philadelphia. I'm a Philly John, born and raised. I did live in DC for about 20 or so years, but I'm Philly through and through, and I'm back in Philadelphia. And that organization supports people who have navigated violence and are what we call co-survivors of homicide. So someone in their family has died by homicide. So I have a team of therapists and somatic practitioners and doulas that I'm training to be in community to support folks. So that's who I am. And I'm a woman who loves to laugh, right? Deep joy. Don't take myself too seriously. Yeah, that's me. And
so y'all see why she's here, right? Y'all see why she's here. Yes, she is amazing. Yes. I love that. I love that. I love all the things you do. I love all of who you are and all that makes you you.
Yeah.
And so I'm thankful for you availing yourselves to us tonight to share just a little bit of what you know.
Yeah.
To help us on our journeys. And so tonight, I want to first start by asking you this question. What is grief?
Yeah.
What is grief?
What is grief? Growing up, I understood grief as this thing that happens when somebody you love dies, right? And that carried me for a while until I started to recognize that grief is more than just this experience that we have, this sort of one-time experience that we have after someone dies, right? It is our human or our natural response to loss, to change, to transitions, to deferred dreams, to unmet expectations, right? Including death.
So you mean to tell me if I lose my job, if my goldfish dies, if I have a major breakup, if I thought I was going to win an Academy Award and I don't win, and the camera is on me and they call somebody else's name, I can potentially be experiencing grief in any of those areas.
In any of those areas. Listen, a couple years ago, so I had, when I was in DC, y'all remember the group Jeanne, right? I thought I was the third member of Jeanne. I had a short haircut, like it was shaped. I thought I was doing something. So never had this sort of attachment to my hair in that way. Well, guess what? A couple years ago, my hair fell out. Grief. Like I had never, deep grief. Now, wait a minute now. I thought I didn't care that much about, right? So grief, it is this response to change, to loss. And not everybody is going to experience. So if all of someone else's hair starts to fall out, they may not experience it the same way I experienced it, right?
Right.
And that's okay. But the potential for these responses is present anytime there is a loss, change, transition, again, deferred dreams. You named a couple things. There are people who want to have children who they're grieving what never will be. Right. So all of that. Yeah, it's and listen, mom, pop, grandma, them no longer being here with us is very important. So this is not to take away from the fact that is deep grief as well. But we are experiencing grief. There are folks who thought the world was going to be different because they voted a certain way. And they woke up on Wednesday, or perhaps even before they went to bed on Tuesday.
Yes.
What they did not produce the outcome that they expected. And they are now navigating the grief of uncertainty. Right. So yeah, grief is expansive.
And why do you think it is that we just focus on grief when it comes to the loss of a loved one? And tonight we are going to talk about, all of these, but more specifically, the loss of someone. But I want us to really talk a little bit about just this transitioning.
Yeah.
Because of that change or transitioning.
Yeah. Some of that I think is just what we understood about grief. I'm trying to find the words because I want to say, so there is whiteness permeates how we discuss things, right? Not white folks, but whiteness, right? So white supremacy, whiteness as a social construct. And with that, it places us into these really limited categories in how it controls our emotional response. So if I am grieving all of these other things, I might also be less productive. So if I can center you that grief is solely centered on the loss of a person, then I can maybe help you navigate that. And it doesn't upset the rest of the world around you. It doesn't upset that, right? So that's part of it. The other part is just we don't have enough people like you and me having these conversations, right? Because somebody understood what grief was, 200 years ago, and now they know more, but we're not talking enough about the fact that grief is expansive. And we're just starting to really tap into what it means to feel and be and not just do. So as we do that, we're getting more language around, oh, wait a minute, you and your best friend had a falling out and y'all went on separate paths. Oh, that is grief. What you're describing is grief. And so it's our expansive and evolving understanding of what it means to be human, I think, is also what's helping us expand that definition or description of what grief is.
That's good. That's good, because I think as you were saying that, I started to think about every year I do this college tour, and there are a lot of the young people who their parents will say things like, oh, no, they can't go that far. right? But the student is like, I want to go that far,
Yeah.
right, for mom or dad. And then when they do go, we like to say, oh, they're just homesick. But being homesick, is that not a student grieving?
Yes.
Grieving because they have experienced a drastic change in some cases.
Drastic change.
Yeah.
A change of scenery, a change of expectation. Going from high school to college is very different. Your community is different. You're grieving the fact that you knew you had 7 classes, the bell would ring. It was easy to walk through the hall and go. There's a different level of responsibility. So all of that is part of our grief. And just before we start talking about like the people, even moving from single to married, right? There is some, like, there was a day when you could just wake up and be like, y'all know what, y'all trying to go on a trip this weekend? Cool. And you didn't have to have discussion and negotiation and compromise with
I'm there.
And marriage can be beautiful. So it's not that. So sometimes we think grief means that you've moved to something that is a bad thing or a painful thing. You could move to something that is joyful, but it is I have to let go of some things. I have to detach in some ways from this old way of being. And that is a shift in my being. So yeah, definitely.
It changes. Yeah. Not necessarily bad.
Not necessarily bad.
Right. It's just different. It's just different.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great segue for us to even talk about the fact that when we lose a person,
yes,
right? When we lose a person, life now is different, right? There's some people, I have some friends who have said, I speak to my mother every day. Every single day I've spoken to my mother, and then their mother passes away.
Yeah.
You have individuals who say, every Thursday I go and I bring food over to my, I know some people who have always cooked a meal for them and their husband.
Yes.
Right? They've always cooked for 2.
Yes.
Now they're like, oh my goodness, I don't need to cook this much food anymore.
Yes.
Right? Those are like the little things. And so now the grief comes when we have a break, a change, a transition, a different way of dealing even in our everyday occurrences. Yes. So let's just talk a little bit about what we've come to know as the 5 stages of grief. And then we can kind of go. And I want those of you that are watching, I want you to feel free. If you have any questions, any comments, go ahead and put them in the chat. We want to be able to answer your questions. We want to have dialogue about some of the things that you are struggling with in your journey of grief today. And so, we have come to know that there are 5 stages of grief. That's what we've learned, right? We've always talked about that. Let's talk about that. You shared something with me even, before when we were just discussing the run of show. And you shared something with me that was eye-opening for me. So why don't you go ahead and share that with our audience?
Yeah. So the 5 stages of grief, first of all, it can be a helpful framework for us, right? To get us talking and understanding what it means to feel and move through grief. I was talking about Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who, right, that's her motto, these 5 stages of grief. It was really initially the 5 stages of dying, because she was working with people who were in palliative care and hospice and talking to them. And there is a journey that one takes when one is at the end of life that might be a little different than the journey one takes when you are grieving someone who is at the end of life. Still, those 5 stages can be a helpful framework for us to go out from in terms of understanding grief. So I might talk about Kubler-Ross, but then I put a couple other things alongside her to give us a really robust understanding of grief. And Dr. KJ, you said this before, and I don't know if you already said it today. It's these 5 stages, these other frameworks. Y'all listen, we all individual. There is no singular grief journey, period.
That's
right. So when we talk about these stages, I want you to think of them as flexible. I want you to think of them as, oh, okay, these are some of the things I might feel and or experience. And whatever else I feel is my stage 2, right?
Right.
So
right.
comfortable
and
with
it's
your
not in
stage.
this order. And it's
Yeah.
not in this order, right? We're
Yes.
sharing an order, but you can experience our number 5 at number 1, or our
Right.
number 4 at number 3. You know, it's not in any particular order. It's just something
Yeah.
for you to kind of say, okay, what I'm feeling right now may be. Let's go to
Yeah.
number 1. Number
Yeah.
1 on our list is denial.
Denial. So, you know, if think about shock, right?
Mhm.
So you just received some news. Here's the thing, even if you are journeying with a loved one who you know is at the end of life, right? There is still something that takes place when they breathe that last breath. So even if
Yeah.
you're with them and they take that last breath, or you receive a phone call, there is this way that the mind is trying to find truth. Like, wait a minute, the mind is trying to situate itself in its new reality.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. Who wants to do that? I don't. So that denial is, this can't be true, because you are mine. You're my person. Whatever level, and y'all, let me let y'all know something. I got a little something here, wipe my face when the tears fall. Right, you are my person.
I just need you to see the whole roll. The whole roll. Yeah.
My person you cannot tell me that my person is not. Wait a minute. What you mean they're not breathing? You're my person. So that denial, and you said, right, it's not in order. So that denial, at the same time, anger might be. No, I know you're not telling me my person is not here with me, right?
Yeah.
So now anger, and think of other emotions too, right? But anger, which we often feel, and not everyone, but we often feel, because how dare you, in some cases, how dare God take my person? You my person. I'm angry. So normalizing for anybody listening, right? Anybody watching, whether you're with us today live or you come back, right? Of course you're in shock. Of course it feels like you're denying. Who wouldn't? This can't be true. Can't be true. Of course you feel anger. If anger is bubbling up in you, yes, it's normal. Yes, because you're my person.
Yeah.
And what do you mean that when I wake up tomorrow, I can't touch you, see you, feel you? I'm angry, right?
Yeah.
I'm angry. And then we think about the bargaining, and that bargaining piece really works with folks who are dying, who are like, wait a minute, God, if you can just give me a few more days, right? A few more minutes, a few more hours. But bargaining also in God, if there's anything you can do in this moment to reverse this, like maybe, I was a chaplain in a level 1 trauma center, right? And I've been in the room where folks are doing CPR and then they have to say, this is it. And the parent is like, if you can just breathe some breath into them right now, what can I do to get you to change what's happening right now? All of this is about the fact that when we experience a loss of a loved one, our worlds are fundamentally changed forever. We are completely disoriented. We are no longer walking on level ground. We are up. I'm floating.
In a cloud.
We're in a cloud, right? We are floating in a cloud. And so it is, right? So that idea of bargaining. And then we think about depression, and hear me, right? So there is, some people, you hear the word depression and we get a little nervous, right? And yeah, depression, this deep, deep, deep sadness associated with our loss. And you're my person again, right? Why would we not feel sadness, right? And so there's no shame in feeling the deep despair or the deep sadness that comes from the reality that what you experienced yesterday as normal, being able to see, touch, feel, be close to, hear the voice of your loved one, that is changed. And there's something in us that recognizes that this change is forever, right? So here's the bargaining piece again. This change is forever. Oh, maybe it's not. Is something going to happen? Are they going to wake up? Are you sure? Right? So the depression, this deep, deep sadness. And when we talk about acceptance, if we think about these 5 stages, right? Acceptance. I like to, so my acceptance is not, I'm good with the fact that my person's not here. It's not like I'm good with it. No, it is, I'm aware that this is my reality. And that for the rest of my life, I will have to live with this as a reality. Because to not accept that means I am living outside of reality. And we know the kind of challenges that might bring for a person if they are living outside of the reality, right? So living with the loss means I am accepting the loss, means I am going to live in this reality. Now, let me tell you what this doesn't mean. This does not mean that you are forever joyful, that now joy is just your portion forever, that you are just walking around smiling. This means that you recognize that you now have to live with this loss, that you have new life. There is a new life ahead of you, and that you now have to live with the reality that your person, you can't touch, feel, hold, sit, hear them, right? You can't do that. It is not, I'm happy about the loss in that sense. It is, the loss is real. Now, if I take these, Dr. KJ, these stages that Kubler-Ross talks about, there are a couple other people, and I'll just talk about one. His name is J. William Worden, for folks who like to read about books, right? J. William Worden. But he and some others do this work around these tasks of mourning, right? And so Ross has this, and I line it up against Ross. And so he'll say that the first thing one has to do is sort of accept the reality of the loss, right? Like this, right? I have to accept this reality of the loss. I have to acknowledge this is my reality. And then he says we have to sit with the pain of the loss.
Absolutely.
Right? So the pain, the sadness, the depression, the anger, all of the feelings that come up. He says we have to sit with that pain. We can't be rushed through it. Everybody's speed, right, of moving through the pain is going to be different. But so he says we got to really accept, we got to say, okay, this is my reality now. Okay, how do I feel about this reality? I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm all of these things. I have to sit with that. Then he says we have to begin to reorient ourselves to the world beyond the loss. So, right, that's that sort of acceptance place as well. If you look at Kubler-Ross, it is now and you said this, I was married. My husband is no longer here, right? My husband has transitioned, if that's what the person's journey is. Reorienting myself means I can't go and buy 12 steaks anymore. I don't need to buy 12 steaks. I don't need to cook 4 steaks for dinner. I don't need to, right? Reorienting. Even in our language, like when my father died, right? One of the things that I had to kind of get used to was like, oh, I'm going to my parents. I'm going to do something with my parents. That was, that's what I would always say. But now it's not my parents. Yes. It's my mom, right? And so that is even the whole reorienting yourself to everything, to how your language. When I would usually cook for 2 of them, it's one of them. When, I have friends who, when Mother's Day, Father's Day, come around, and this is, bringing us into this holidays, when we usually go to Big Mama's house. Big Mama ain't here. Big Mama is not there. Who's cooking the turkey this year? Big Mama. And how about this? And she I didn't take the time. So look, now this is it. I didn't take the time, right? The person to sit with Big Mama while she was here to learn how to make the turkey. To get the recipes. So now I'm accepting it, but now here comes the anger again. Keyword again. Right? So when you say here comes the anger again, you're letting folks know that, you were angry here. And then maybe you had some months, some weeks, some days, some years where the anger, but here come this turkey and don't nobody know how to make the turkey nor the pie. And you know what? Now I'm angry again because this season is supposed. So again, I'm angry again, and that tells us that the emotion that we feel, this is why we're living with grief for the rest of our life, and it's not a bad thing. It is the fact that we're human, that we get a chance to do that. And you said, I'm angry again because something has come up, an event has taken place in my today that reconnects me to my yesterday, and I realized that I ain't got it. We ain't got the recipes, right? And it was somebody on Instagram or something the other day, and they were like, Auntie, give us those recipes, right? Because that really is part of moving through grief, is how can I connect with, right? And that's Warden's last thing, continuing bonds. It's remaining connected in some way with your person. Maybe you can't touch them, but you got all their recipes. I got my grandmama recipes, right? So I can't see her. She's not here. But guess what I can do? Man, in fact, I'm going to my mom's house tomorrow to make the meatballs. Because I got grandmom's recipes, right? So he's like, you got to reorient yourself, and you say it with language and all of these things. And we have to find a way, for those for whom this makes sense, to remain connected and grounded with the person, even though they're not here anymore. But what did your dad pour into you that's still there? That my dad is here because this is what he gave me, right? Like, remaining connected to our people, right? So yes, Doc.
Somebody said food helps comfort. Somebody says food helps comfort. Yeah. And so we have all of these ways in which we experience. Somebody said I'm angry again also. Yeah. And so I think this episode is really about, now that we know that we will experience these emotions, now we experience these feelings, and it's okay. Let me just say, it is okay. No matter where you find yourself in this journey, no matter what part, whether you are at you're still in shock, right? And you can be in shock, or you can be in shock 12 years later. Like, I still can't believe that they're gone, right? And so as we navigate this, we named this show The Gift of Grief. Why would you say that grief is a gift? And then we'll get to the other part of our show title.
So here's why, for me, grief is a gift. Grief is Spirit's invitation for us to reimagine ourselves in our today, and to hold on to pieces of hope for our tomorrow. It is God's way of giving us an opportunity to reorient ourselves and trust that we have the capacity within, right, to be alive, to be well, to thrive. So grief it's not just the experience of loss. Grief is this gift. God gives us this opportunity to sit with our pain, to rediscover ourselves, to look around and say, oh, wait a minute, God, I hear you differently. I see myself differently, to discover new strengths, to realize that humanity has this as part of its plight. We will experience loss, change, and change. It is this opportunity. Grief is a reminder that we are still here in the world and that we still have possibility. Right. And so that, for me, the gift is the grief or the loss that we experience doesn't have to kill us. Like, the gift is that I can still live even though my person is not here with me physically. If I allow myself to move through the process of grief, to befriend grief, not to think of it as something that came to take me out, but to think of it as something that comes to expand my capacity for being grounded in myself, being grounded in the divine, being connected to community, and even being connected to the person who's no longer. If I see grief in that way, it becomes a gift. For some, grief is the thing that helped them understand their purpose in life. It was grandma was not here, and you decided that her sweet potato pies was still the best pie you ever had, and so you opened up a pie business. That is part of your grieving. That's a gift. You learn how to care for yourself, how to set boundaries because of a loss that you experience. That's a gift, right? So yes, the loss is important. Your person ain't here and I'm weeping with you. And what are these other things that the universe places in our path? Because, right? So for me to become, there are some things I have to let go of. And sometimes that means that mama can't be here in order for me to do this next thing.
Right. And that doesn't always feel good. And I want us to understand. I want us to understand that this stuff does not feel good. And I see someone said in the chat, they said, I'm angry again also, but then they said it is well, right? And we often say it is well, it is well, it is well. It is well, although it doesn't feel well.
It doesn't feel well. And it is well doesn't mean I'm not sad. So we have to have the duality. So I think one thing, how do we move through the season? It is holding the duality of it can be well.
Yes.
And I can still be sad.
Yes.
My sadness doesn't negate the wellness that's present, right? So yeah. And I see loss versus growth. It can. If we don't think of loss as here to take us out, right? If we don't think of grief as something to swallow us, but if we think of it as something to help move us into a more expanded version of ourselves, it can definitely produce growth.
Yeah. And here we grow around our grief, right? So the grief stays there. And oftentimes it's going to be there, but we grow around it. We continue to grow around it, right? We continue to grow right there. Yeah. And so that's good. That's good. So now here we are, and the holidays are here.
Yeah.
The most dreaded time of the year for many people without loss. Right? However, when we get to this place, there are some people, and again, there are some people that may have, within the last month or so, may have experienced the loss of a loved one. There's some that within the last year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, have experienced one loss or multiple losses, right? Whatever it may be. And I need you all to go ahead and put it in the chat. If there's someone you've lost at the end of this show tonight, we are going to go ahead and we are going to share. I got you. We are going to go ahead and share. So we're going to speak those persons' names at the end of this show tonight. We're going to speak their names, okay? But as we are talking about, let's talk about some ways that we navigate this. I remember, again, there was a point where I was crying. I was just having like a moment. And someone said to me, "You still crying?"
Woo.
And one of the things, Dr. Jamie, I realized is that until you experience it, you have no clue. Right? And so I want to say to the individuals that are on this side, that are in the process of grieving the loss of a loved one, when people say things that are less than sensitive, we still have to offer grace because they don't know and they don't understand. Because there have been moments where I know people that are like, I know she did, because they're ready to go off, right? There are moments that, I can be a little slick at the tongue sometimes. I admit it.
I'm mad though.
And there have been some things that I've wanted to say to some people that I know would be hurtful.
Yes. Yeah.
And so while they were not sensitive to my emotion, I had to be mature enough to be sensitive to their emotion and be able to press through it, right? And so I want us to be aware. I think one of the best ways of navigating, the first way to navigate, is have a sense of awareness. Having a sense of awareness of be real with yourself. Know where you are in your journey. And those persons that are not in that place, be sensitive as well. Because Come on, you need to get out the house. I'm just sharing, and I'm gonna give you opportunity to speak. These are things.
I know you heard it.
You need to get out the house. You can't be in a bed all day long. Come on, you gotta go.
Yes, I can.
Okay. Then you have then let's just say some of the things. Any of you in the chat, go ahead and say some of the things you've heard. Like I told you, you still crying, you can't stay in the bed all day. How about this one? Your father would not how you know what my father would want? Did you know him? I'm sorry. Okay. He wouldn't want you to be like this. Okay. What are some? I'm just thinking about some of the things that we hear.
Yep.
Around these times, right?
Yep.
Go ahead, share. What are some of the things you've heard?
So what you've named already, these things about, as you said, you should be over this by now, right? Or they'll give you the time. It's been a year already. Right. So like it's been a year, as if the 12-month mark was the place where I was supposed to be like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so people put that time frame kind of thing on you. And then folks who continuously remind you that the person's in a better place, right? And that kind of thing, where even if you do have a belief in an afterlife, right? That's your faith, great. And it's my person. Better place or not, I want them with me. And so you're not helping me move through my grief with these kinds of things. And
what's a better place than with me?
Right?
Right? Because that's my person. So
what better place is there? We had a great place together, right? So just the idea that, and you said this, I love that you said this. First of all, the fact that I am grieving doesn't mean I have to I can still exhibit grace while I'm grieving. Right.
Yeah.
The truth is, folks don't know what to say. We this is why we need these kinds of conversations, because folks out here saying anything and it's not helpful. Right. And so the capacity for being the grieving person and saying, these people saying they don't know what they are saying to me right now, and it's not helpful. But I'm not gonna cuss them out. I'm not gonna do those things. I'm just gonna thank you and keep like, how can I do that? So you saying like, I'm not going to say what I could say, because I could hurt your feelings. Because right now, what you said hurt mine for real.
Right.
It hurt mine for real. So there's that space of grief where being mature, as you said, right, and allows us to be like, okay, y'all don't know what y'all talking about. So let me keep it moving, so I don't now harm you, even if you are saying something slick, harmful to me, right? So I think that's just, it's good for us to know that. But yeah, folks say all kinds of things during this holiday season, and you name, so in terms of having awareness, right? Awareness that this season, we don't get to control what comes up.
Mm-hmm.
So an awareness that you could go into a Target and they play a song, and that song be the song, and you ain't never cried in this song before, but today the song tapped a memory, right? And so the awareness that you are human and that anything could activate, could awaken, could tap into a memory that then brings about this emotional response. So,
and they call that SUGS, right? They call that SUGS.
Yes.
That is a sudden unexpected grief syndrome. And we talk about that. I talk about that a lot because, you said it could be a song. It can be a smell.
It could be a smell.
It can
be somebody's voice. It could be somebody's voice that's not your person, but for some reason, the way they said, girl, if you don't stop talking, you be like, wait a minute. Right? There was an actress, Lynn Thigpen. She was in Lean on Me. She's in a whole lot of other things. I think she might have been one of them voices in Carmen Sandiego. She looked like my cousin that I named Pauline Bernadette Transition in 1989. Every time I saw something with Lynn Thigpen on it, my heart would start to and I'll be like, oh my, I know she's not my cousin. She doesn't look like you. If you put a picture, you can see they weren't the same, but it was something about this woman. And so you could be walking down the street and see a glimpse of somebody, and that glimpse be, so yes, that's sudden. So being aware that it exists, and ain't nothing wrong with you for experiencing it, right? Like, you are human. That's part of your human experience. So if you can hold on to that, that is certainly one of the beginning things that can help move us through this season. And then I would say embracing the sort of duality of emotions that might be present, right? So the anger and the frustration that could awaken during this season, along with holding on to perhaps joy and celebration, if that's what comes, that you can have both. You can want to be around your family and also angry that the person who's the matriarch or patriarch, or that there's a seat missing from the table, right? You can be happy that you get to go spend time with this loved one, and also reminded that someone else is not here. And so can you embrace the duality of the season is something that I would say we can hold on to, and then set boundaries, right?
Yes.
Because sometimes we feel like we have to show up to everything during this. Like, I must show up. I must put on perhaps the mask. I must, as people told you, you need to get out of bed. I might not need to do that in this season. I might need to stay in bed right now. And so, do I know how to set boundaries? Do I know how to say, all right, I know I have the capacity to go to the family dinner, but I can't be there all day. I'm going at 5 because they said dinner was being served at 4:30. I'm gonna show up at 5, get my plate, hug a few faces, and I'm out by 6:30, right? Setting boundaries so that you can honor your capacity, as well as be in community with those who love you, if you wish to do that.
And I'll add to that, I often say, drive your own car if that's possible, right?
Yes.
Because, you don't have to wait on anybody when it's time to leave, when you feel it rising up, when you feel like, you know what, it's getting to be a bit overwhelming right now for me, hey guys, and guess what? You don't have to explain why.
You don't have to explain.
You don't have to explain. It's just like, gotta go. You leaving? We just about to play Uno. I know. I gotta go.
Yep.
But we were gonna play your favorite charades. Next time. I'll see y'all later on. And exit stage left. Sometimes you have to do that. Or if you're not going to leave, if you can, find a quiet space, I would suggest.
Yep.
If it is going into your car for 20 minutes, 15 minutes, sit in the car. If it's making a phone call to somebody, maybe you're out with friends and you need to make a phone call to a loved one just to connect, just to be like, I need a minute, be prepared in that way. And so I think that's helpful in navigating this, because again, we don't know. And so and this person happens to be, I'll be very transparent, this happens to be my sister asking this question. And so she's saying, so awareness is why grief comes over us all of a sudden. And I think in answering that, awareness, yes, but sometimes it is just that the sudden unexpected grief syndrome. What comes upon us is the trigger. So they're triggers. They're actually triggers. So it's the trigger of smelling a cologne that they wear or would have worn. It's the trigger of hearing their favorite song or their favorite artist. It's the trigger of a food that you all always eat together or they love. It's the trigger of seeing oxtail on sale and knowing that that's their favorite food. You know what I mean? Like, it could be something as simple as that. So awareness, yes, but it's really the triggers that will bring the grief on all of a sudden, because a memory, it doesn't even have to be something physically.
Right.
It can be just a memory, something that crosses your mind. And then that realization that they are not here in the physical will cause that grief to come on.
Yeah, that's perfect, right? Because here's the thing about memory is, unless we are experiencing some cognitive deficits, that memory does what it does, and it literally does not have to be, as you said, something tangible where you hear a song, you could be sitting in your living room and memory, right? And now I am transported in some ways back to the person. That's how the brain works, right? And so, yeah, absolutely. That you said awareness, but also just memory and knowing that that's okay. Like that is okay that the memory has awakened all of these emotions, right? Those emotions won't take us out, right? They might feel it might feel like a flood even, right? Let it wash over us and be reminded that we can still be well even after the emotion has washed over us. So I love thank you for that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So now we started off talking about this. So we've talked about this. I have a niece who is a birth doula. She's a doula.
Yes, I'm a birth doula too.
Right. Okay. So we always hear about doulas in that sense.
Yes.
In the sense of giving birth, being present when someone is giving birth and things like that nature, right? And so we have individuals that pass away tragically, unexpectedly. Someone asked, do we think it's better for the person to pass unexpectedly and instantly versus someone having a long illness and taking their time? Those are questions and comments that come up, right? And so these are this is what we deal with when we're dealing with talking about death and dying, right? Yes. And so when we lose someone, how do we now employ a death doula? What is a death doula, versus a doula that we know?
Yeah. So birth doulas, death doulas, same work on opposite ends of life's spectrum, right? So a death doula is journeying with someone through their last days. And let's just say, for example, someone gets a terminal diagnosis and doctor says 3 months, 6 months, that person would hire a death doula who would then journey with them over the next 3 months, 6 months, right? So helping you as your advocate. No, this is a non-medical professional, right? Providing emotional, spiritual, logistical, practical support. So advocacy and empowerment. So if you need to go to the doctors, you need somebody to help you sort of asking questions and formulating your death plan. What might a death plan be? It might be that I want to be cremated versus buried, right? So it might mean I want to begin to make some pre-death funeral arrangements. So I want to go to the funeral home today and make some arrangements for the end of life, which I would want us to, folks, please start thinking about that. That's a whole other story, right? So this death doula might support you in making those kinds of arrangements. The death doula will be sitting with you and having conversations around death and dying and grief, because you as the dying person are also grieving, right? Imagine going from being okay and say mobile and able to get around to no longer being able to drive or to prepare your own food. Now, that's not everybody's journey, but just imagine the grief around the loss of agency. I can no longer prepare my own food. I can no longer go get in my car and take myself to the store. So the death doula is working with you through those transitions, holding sacred space for the exploration of emotion, but may also be providing you with some practical support. They might also support your family in the grieving process, right? And so how does the journey your mother is on, your father, your cousin, your sibling, your spouse is on? Let's talk about how you're feeling about that journey. How is your life changing right now? And then talking about other changes that might be coming as a result of this person's end of life journey. Now, that's if somebody comes to a death doula when they get a diagnosis. Most folks are, mom got 4 days left probably. And we want somebody to come and join us, right? And so that is a more short-term kind of relationship. And so they're coming in, maybe they're helping you stand vigil, right? So sort of stand watch, helping the family get more comfortable in the discomfort that is watching someone transition. We don't want to be by the bedside, or so how can I help you? Because we all want to see the baby when the baby's born. We all want to hold the baby, and
Right.
we all. What if I said that we could do that same thing as a person prepared to be born into, depending on your belief, for me, be born into another world again, right? So
Mm-hmm.
is there a way for us to hold them? And so the death doula is
Mm.
coming in and saying, hey, I
Mm.
can help you hold your mom, your dad, your child
Wow.
in this way
Wow.
as they are moving and being born into a new world. So again, that same kind of grief work, the practical work, the advocacy work, right? Talking to people on your behalf, helping you do projects. So you might say, I want to leave, since we talked about recipes earlier, a lot of things I do, particularly with Black families, I have to be honest, is because I feel like it's somebody, auntie, mom that got the recipes. It is, what would be beautiful to live beyond you? Yes, we know that your heart is with your children, your grandchildren, but I wonder what it would be like for them to be able to pull out a book and be able to cook grandma's sweet potato pie because they knew your recipe. And so one of the things that we might help a person do, a family do, is what are the things that we know need to live in a tangible way long after Big Mama is gone? And that is often recipe. It's more than that, but we often can do something with recipes. And so we might help create a cookbook for the family that has the top 10 recipes that they were used to eating at Big Mama's house, right? So it is, how can I help you? Teaching people how to care for a body. Now, no, you don't have to do body washing or anything like that. But at the end of life, I can help you wash the body in a way that sort of face, arms, legs, that allow you to engage in this very sacred ritual of preparing your loved one for the next month. So we help families do that work as death doulas, and folks who come to me, I do extensive sort of death doula and grief companion work, because not every death doula is well versed in grief. And so I make sure that grief is a big part of our program. So death doulas, birth doulas, same kind of, let me help you through this process. Birth doulas are helping you. What's your bag? What's in your bag as you are preparing to go to the hospital? Let's talk about what it means to turn to your side when you're feeling like you're in pain. Death doulas do that same kind of work. And one thing I just got to say, Dr. KJ, is in the death work, when I'm really with somebody, there are some things that folks do. So sometimes I am sort of dismantling myths and fear around end of life, right? So sometimes a person might be reaching up and my mom she needs something. No, she don't, baby. No, she don't. No, she don't. Now I know we can't see what she see, but she sees somebody. And so it is, because this is spiritual work for me. So it is helping folks in that space too, helping them, helping to normalize all of the ways Spirit has given us to see beyond what we see. And so
let's talk about that. I love that you went there, because listen, we have Christians that are on here. We have Muslims that will be watching. Yes. We have persons that are part of the Ifa faith. We have people that are part of all different faiths, right? I'm not going to go through the whole faiths, right, and beliefs. There are people that are a combination of all of them, right? Yep. We have culturally, right? My mother's from Jamaica, and in Jamaica, they believe that the dogs see duppy. They believe that the dogs see ghosts.
Yes.
Right. And I can remember my grandmother passed away she was in Jamaica when she passed away. And we went back like a year after she passed away. Right. Yeah. And I've always been spiritually sensitive. Right. And my grandmother and I were very close, and she died when I was young. And I remember hearing the dogs howling throughout the night. Okay. And I got up to use the bathroom. And when I went to the bathroom, I saw my grandmother standing in the bath, like she was standing in the bathtub. I don't know. I didn't have to go to the bathroom anymore. And I went back because I was a little girl, right? Yes. I did not really understand, right? Yes. And then, as a thespian, studying theater, God's Trombones, right? And I remember reading I can't remember which one it was, but Go Down Death It was Go Down Death in God's Trombones. James Weldon Johnson wrote Go Down Death. And he talks about how the chariots came and took her away. And I read that to my mother when my dad passed. And we just, that was part of our own ritual. And then I remember my father actually passed at home. And so we went in the room, we covered my mother with a prayer shawl. We prayed. We burnt copal. We're just doing all of these things, right? Reading scripture, all that stuff. Open the window, right? And we closed the window and we heard the cats outside the window. There are cats at the neighbor's house, and we heard the cats audibly, all of us, and we froze like, did y'all hear that? Did you hear that? So I have so many, and then you hear the people, I hear a lot of people say, oh, she was singing, she was calling her mother, she was calling her father, she was calling this person, and those are some of the things we begin to understand about people passing. Someone here even says, my mom passed 2 months ago. I don't think I got to the trigger stage. I cry if the water runs too hard. Yeah. Listen, that happens. That happens. And guess what, sister, brother? That's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. And we cry with you.
Yes.
We cry with you. And so, sis, I want you to share, like, those are some of my experiences.
Yeah.
In the arts, just see, people say they're singing certain songs. They're calling names.
Yep.
That we heard about from when we were young. We never met.
You never met them. Right.
But that was grandpa's brother.
Right. Yeah.
And we know died before we were born, but he
somehow
called his brother's name.
Somehow. Right. And it's, for me, it's not, I appreciate all of those things. It's not by coincidence that all of a sudden this person is calling, their brother, their father, their mother. Another thing that we find, and I'll get back to that. Another thing we find is sometimes folks are saying, okay, I'm ready to go home. And folks are like, you are home. No, they're not. Right. That's not the home that they're talking about. So we help these families like with that kind of thing. But yes, I have seen people reaching up. I have heard people saying names. I have, so a gift and this spirit is, if I'm in a space with someone who is near transitioning, right? This is God. I can be like, oh, it's not going to be today. Right. Like, but that ain't me. That's just, there's something that I see, or that spirit sees, and it's not today, but tomorrow, like I'll come tomorrow. It's today. Get everybody, right? And so one of the things I've seen with people is that sometimes people don't want anyone in the room with them when they are breathing their last breath. So they'll be there. Everybody in the room, they'll be there. Family been gathered for a whole 20 hours. They just been in the room. And I'll say something like, sometimes, right? This has nothing to do with us, because guess what, Doc? This is their end of life journey. Right? This is their journey. So sometimes maybe we should all leave the room for a few minutes. Right? And sometimes it's hard for a family. Why? My mama can't take her last breath and not be in the room. But that might be her journey, though. She know you here. Right? So sometimes I've seen people wait, whatever's happening, until everybody leaves the room, gets down to the end of the hall.
Or they just left the hospital. I have heard this. The whole family was there. They just left the hospital. By the time they get home, their family gets a call. They're like, we just left there.
Right. And sometimes we hold that as we did something. You didn't do anything wrong, baby. You didn't do anything wrong. And then I'm thinking about a mother, a woman specifically. And I'll say my journey with her was, I had her when I was a hospice chaplain, and she was around the age my grandmother would be. So they were roughly the same age. Now, my grandmother had died 20 years prior to me meeting this woman, but they were around the same age. So there was something in me that connected to something in her that was really me reconnecting with my grandmother. So I admit that, right? That it was there. But when the nurses said, oh, she's going to transition today, I said, no, she's not. And she didn't. And then the next day, no, she's not. And so they had all the family came, and I came in the room day 4, and I said, y'all keep saying everybody has seen her. Everybody has not seen her. Somebody has not been here. And they said they named one of the sons who was in Cali in school. I said, y'all need to get him on the red eye. She not leaving until that last great grandbaby get here. I'm calling him grandbaby, young man. Till that last grandbaby get here, she not leaving. She's not leaving. They told y'all she was leaving on Monday. It's Thursday. She is waiting for somebody. And I kept asking y'all, not angrily, but like y'all kept saying everybody's been here. No, they haven't. No, they haven't. Because she waiting for somebody. As soon as that grandbaby got there, grandma, mom here. I said, go ahead, you can kiss her. And so that's the thing, right? You don't have to. I'm with you. I got you. Go ahead. You can get close to her. It's all right. Can I kiss her? You can kiss her. Kiss his grandma. Grandma, let me tell you about school. He started telling her about school. When he finished his story, grandma reached up, said something to her husband. I won't say his name because I don't want people. Said something to her husband. And he looked up. He said, is she all right? I said, she all right. She talking to your grandfather. He been waiting for you to get here. So she and that was, she said something, smiled, gone. So this end of life journey, it's that person's journey. And so I know sometimes we want to, and we got to find ways to not, that's part of our grieving process, right? Is that they held on or they didn't, those kinds of things, but that's not on us. That's their journey. We don't own their last breath. That's them in spirit, right? And so, the opening of the windows, it's just so much that is beyond some of this is beyond what we can see. We are practicing rituals that our great grandparents practiced. And so, and I see what you're writing, Justine, in here. This hits so close to home. I was in prison for 9 years. My mom died 2 months after I got home. And everyone kept saying, woo! She waited for me to get home. And I'm saying that happens. That folks wait. They wait. And my experience and stories I've had, folks visit. I've seen my cousin. I saw my cousin after the transition. And I said, Mom, she was here. And she told me my cousin died in 1989, Pauline Bennett. She was like a second mother to me. And when she died, she came back. And you know what she told me? She said, baby, God is going to use you as a healer. And so even as I understood my call to preach, when they asked me what I was called to do, I said heal. I ain't know nothing about preaching. I said heal because my cousin came and told me what my work was. So for me, the dead are alive in us. Their energy and spirit still around us. If we listen, sometimes they'll speak through the sun, through the flower, through the bird at the window, through the waves, right? And so grief when you allow yourself to befriend grief, even if it sometimes feels like your heart is broken as you are doing so, you begin to hear differently. And I think it's in the hearing differently that we become different. And that is what is able to move us into our futures, because the fact that mom or dad or grandmom is not here today is not intended for us to not be here today. We are here. And so what must we do with our grief, which is why it's a gift, to continue to live? And I don't mean like the Walking Dead. I mean to be alive, right? In the midst of loss. And so, I've seen it.
Whew. So I just have I have like 2 more questions, maybe 3, maybe no more. I don't even know, because sis, I need to ask you these two things. One, you said, that it is your belief that they come back and they speak to us through these different means. And, again, coming from a Caribbean background, Guyanese father, Jamaican mother,
Yeah.
Culturally, there are a lot of things, just a lot of things culturally, right? And we say, did you dream them? Did you dream them yet? You said your cousin came back, right? And the people that talk about when a person passes away, did you dream them? Did they, did you dream them? And if you dreamt them, that is like a good sign that, they're good and everything is good, and things like that. And then, you have the concept of reincarnation and people coming back in the form of different things. And I remember on my wedding day, there was a fly that was flying around, right? And I said, the bridesmaids, quick short story, the bridesmaids, I said, oh, that's another bridesmaid, because they were like, we got another bridesmaid. I said, no, that's my dad, right?
Yeah.
And so later on, one of the persons who was at the wedding, she said there was a fly sitting next to my mother, and she was about to swat the fly, but she didn't. And she was like, she doesn't know why, but she didn't hit the fly. And then this is the part that took me over, okay? Then my niece, who's my maid of honor, said, Auntie, you remember when we were in the holding room, you said that fly was Grandpa? And I was like, yeah. She said, that fly was in your veil the entire ceremony. And I said, now I got to write a poem about the fly in my veil. Because now when I see flies, if I see one fly, just one fly, I'm like, okay, and so, when you said that kind of just sent, a trigger. I've heard Tabitha Brown talk about dimes, how dimes, and so there are little things that remind us of those individuals. And then I want to ask you the final two questions. And then if anybody has any questions in the chat, please feel free. And then we're going to wrap up. How do you see God? How do you see God in the midst of the work you do? And how do you see God in the people you serve?
Yeah, let me do the second one first. So I enter in with people with holy reverence and sacred wonder. And that is me saying, one, sacred wonder is a healthy, authentic curiosity about the person that's in front of me, the people that are in front of me. It is me honoring that just because you're a Black woman doesn't mean you're a Black woman who has the exact same lived experience as me, right? That so it is this curiosity, this wonder, who is in front of me, right?
Yeah.
That along with sort of holy reverence, it is God has breathed life into you. And therefore, when I am in your presence, I am also in the presence of the divine. Yeah. So I'm entering in with people, honoring that this is a piece of God in front of me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think that how do I see? I see that this is a piece, and in all of the ways that they are experiencing, whether it is grief or end of life, I am able to see the sort of fingerprints of God on them. Because some of the people, as I said, I do some work around homicide in the city of Philadelphia. That's one, it's not for the faint of heart. It's hard work, right? It is, I am still able, though, even in this, to see the way that God can hold you, even in the midst of some of the most devastating, horrific circumstances. And how does God hold you? So how do I see God? How does God hold you? God holds you because God allows me and others like me to be with you. Right. So God, but God. And so I see God as this expansive, if I were to use sort of words, right? Love, justice, care, compassion. And so God, that's what God is for me, right? And God is one ultimately who can restore, bring back to life dead things. Which is why when people say goodbye or breathe their last breath, for me, that's just in this body. That there is rebirth, there's resurrection.
Yeah.
Even I don't see you. I'll never see you like this again. But there's resurrection. You named the fly. So Dad's not here to walk me down the aisle, or is he? That maybe Dad didn't walk you down the aisle, but he flew with you down the aisle. With you the whole time. So right, that's how I make sense of who God is, of who God is like this, but who God is here. And that's why when I'm in somebody's presence, God is present, because God is in you, God is in me. And there are sometimes when we are going through, Doc, when the God that we have been taught about, right? We don't see that God.
Yeah.
We don't see that God. And I get it. Which is when we talk about God, even in our trainings, it is. Sometimes I know you can't see the God that you were taught about, but tell me what you learned about that God. God is love. So guess what I want to offer you today? Love. What else were you taught about the God that I know you can't see right now? That God is compassion. Guess what I'm here with today? Compassion. So you might not be able to see this God you were talking about, that you were taught, but can I give God to you in a way that lets you connect with God in new ways? And so that's how I see God in my work. I see God as breathing and healing people who some will walk again on this earth, right? Some are there because they're grieving, and some walk again in this form, but their energy and their presence remains. And so, yeah, that's how I see God in this. And I call to it, right?
Yeah.
Calling, passion, gifting, or strengthening, which training.
Right.
What a need, because we need people. People need someone who will be able to say, "I know you can't see the God you were taught about. It's hard for you, so because you're reorienting yourself. So wonder what it means if I say, well, who love?
Right.
I wonder if that is God for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's good. We've got comments in the chat. One person says, yes, dimes. I've been finding dimes since my mom passed in 2020. Yeah. And then Sister Dina says, you're on target. My auntie Eloise died 10/5/95, a day after she heard my voice on the phone in another state. Yeah. She had been calling my name a couple of days before. Yeah. You see, this is just so powerful. And so, with that being said, we are way over time. Way over time, and I do want to be sensitive to that. But I would love, as promised, I want us to be able, before I ask you our final closing question that we ask all of our guests, I want us to begin, those of you watching, I'd like us to go ahead and begin to put the names of individuals that passed away, our friends, our family members within our circle. This is a sacred time. And so we want to be able to speak their names. You are more than welcome to put multiple names in the chat. We want to be able to speak their name. We want to be able to speak their name. We want to be able to speak their name. So don't be afraid. Go ahead and put their names in the chat. Yeah. Dr. Jamie, you got me here crying. I don't usually be crying on the but yeah.
Writing the name out here too. There we go.
Yes, yes, the names are coming now. The names are coming now. My beloved brother-in-law, Tony Hayes. We speak his name. Our father, Eustace Agard. We speak his name. Elder Joseph Ford. Today we speak his name. Mother Carmen Diddley. We speak her name. Jadelyn Anthony. We speak her name. Mother Helen Ford. We speak her name. Mona Hutchinson. We speak her name. Mr. Alexander, we speak his name. Yes, we called Reverend Joseph and Mother Helen Ford earlier. We speak your names. Yeah. Jane Monroe, Albert Monroe, Rosa Watkins. We speak their names. Okay, so Sharon Dorsey Smith, Alana Dorsey, John Floyd, Brenda Jones, Kobe Wilson. We speak their names. Cersei Moss Cobb. We speak his name. Walter Mosley, Hyacinth Mosley. We speak their names. Aaliyah Hinkson. We speak her name. Timothy Harrison, Kathy Cobb. We speak their names. We speak their names. And as long as we speak their names, yes, they live. Yes. They shall live on in our memories, in our hearts, in our minds, in our spirits, in our day-to-day activities. We thank God for their lives. We thank God for their love. Yeah. We thank God for their legacies. We are grateful. Iris Kosher, we speak her name. Yes. Yes. Dr. Jamie, I'm going to have you lead us in, if you'd like to lead us in an affirmation. Yeah. As we speak these names.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. As you've already named, for as long as we name our loved ones, they remain alive with us. And so yes, even when our voices are shaking, mm-hmm, and it doesn't even feel like words can be formed, you know, sometimes we can cry so hard that we can't get words out. May we know without a shadow of a doubt that they are with us, that we hold their memory, and because we hold their memory, we hold them. And for as long as we breathe, as long as there is life in us, somebody on here right now has a sibling, and I don't know, just a sibling, as long as, and that was their closest sibling, as long as we are breathing, they are with us. That there is never a moment where we are outside of both their and God's care. Mm-hmm. And so my hope is that we hold on to the love that they deposited in us,
Yes.
that we never forget,
Yes.
that remembering is love.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine, Reverend Monique Crane Spells, she always tells us to sort of hold ourselves and remember the person who loved us. And
Mm.
she tells us to remind ourselves
Mm.
that we are loved.
Mm-hmm.
She says, don't say we though, right? Say I am loved.
I am loved.
And for me, I would say Alberta loves me.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all hear loves as in present, right? Present.
Yes.
It is, there are moments when we are moving through life and we may need to just pause. You might have just parked your car before you go into the office to just literally hold yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the names that you mentioned. Timothy Harrison loves.
Mm-hmm.
My grandson Kobe Wilson loves me.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all understand? Sheldon Williams, my brother, loves me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I encourage you all. I encourage all of us. And then this final thing is that your grief is real and it deserves space to breathe. That there is nothing wrong with you because you have shed tears.
Mm-hmm.
That there is nothing wrong with you because there are moments when your grief is awakened.
Yes.
Right? There's nothing wrong with that. And grief is not just your experience with loss. Again, it is your invitation by the divine one to reimagine and to reorient yourself, trusting that you have in you the capacity
Mm-hmm.
to move forward in life,
Mm-hmm.
remembering that I am loved,
Yes.
right? To bring yourself into deeper relationship with you, with the divine, and with all of humanity as grief becomes a place of sacred transformation. We are still here because we are able to grieve. That is the last word I think I would leave with us, that you are still here
Yeah.
because you have the gift of grief, which means that when you experience loss, it doesn't have to take you out, as hard as it might feel. Even when we leave this place tonight, Kathy Cobb loves me.
Mm-hmm.
Clement
Mm-hmm.
Collier loves me. Bishop Michael Banks loves
Yes.
me.
Yes. 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 And might I add to those names, Bradley Monroe
Mm,
loves me. Might
loves
I add, Pat Pottinger. There's so many that we can add. And so we hold sacred space. We say thank you, thank you, thank you, Dr. Jamie, for sharing with us tonight. Thank you for being our doula as we go through this process. And for any of you that are joining us tonight, you've enjoyed the show. It has ministered to you. It has touched you. You are more than welcome to join us for more of our discussions. And if you want to talk a little bit more with Dr. Jamie, you can go ahead and follow her on Instagram. You can follow her. If you want to be a death doula, if you feel a call,
yeah.
she has a class coming up, right? For
Yes,
me.
yes.
We have Dr. Jamie has a class coming up, and she will be sharing with us more. And once I get that information, I'll be more than happy to share that with you. And we are just grateful to each of you for joining us today. And we just want to say thank you. And so, with that last liberating thought, she said, "You are here and you are loved."
Yes.
So with that, family, thank you for joining us tonight. And as I always say, live liberated. Good night.
Good night.